All right. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? How are we doing? First things first, have to acknowledge that we are on a bit of a delay. 1 minute, 60 seconds. So keep that in mind. I miss you guys already. I'm in the future. Come join me. We got some games that just started. I'm gonna bring you guys over to our scene here. We got everyone on cam. Everyone's good to go. First game that started is our board 1 against the board 4 from the Indian Yogis. So that's the team we're playing. We also have a command there. Exclamation mark roster will give you guys an idea who we are fielding for our team and who we are up against. The Indian Yogi team has Vidit Gujarati on board 1. The headliner. We're actually fielding our same roster. Right, so we have Magnus, Aryan, Razvan, and Jennifer Yu on board 4. So our roster is going to look very similar. And meanwhile, as I'm looking at this game, I'm wondering, what the hell is happening here with a move like this? D4. Holy smokes. Yeah, this looks a little wild. Because bishop d6, I mean, lots of ways to play against it. I wouldn't say d4 is at, even like top 3 choices for me. But you can see that, white wants to play c3, and even if black could take this, the idea is to take back. Like, of course, right now the bishop's hanging, but even if the move knight c3 were to happen, I mean, white's just trying to play almost like a Smith Mora. And it looks like a pretty good one because that bishop looks kind of misplaced. So, I mean, I guess bishop c5 looks like a reasonable choice here. Knight f6 and castle could also be played, but I'm looking at this. Let's see if some other games have gotten underway, and they have. Aryan playing on board 2 for us here. He's going up against Aroniak Gosh, who I'm not too familiar with, if I'm honest. He has a rating like a GM, though. Over 2,500. But he is just an IM. I'm not sure about his norm status. Cannot see Jennifer's game. Well, it's probably because it hasn't started yet. I believe that they don't start every single game at the exact same time. I think that they stagger them ever so slightly, maybe like a minute apart. So how are we doing, guys? Ready for another PCL week? Thanks, Stockfish, for the gifted subs here. Can't even keep up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Benjamin, thanks for 8 months with Prime. JWK86 with the resub, The Long Night, 18 months. Reality 8, thanks for 32 months with Prime. So yeah, our lineup looks very similar. I think that the Yogis team changed their lineup, and now we have all the games underway, by the way. Let's pull them all up. There we go. So this is Razvan's game here. Against another Grandmaster, Raunak Sadwani. Hello, Ambit Gambit, Conglossia, Nitsud Prime, Jason Taylor, Superstar Joey Mack, thanks for the Prime sub. And Stockfish with more gifted subs. So this is round one. If you're wondering what the hell the PCL is all about, we have some commands for you there. They're all in the title, exclamation mark format. But essentially, it's teams of 4. Everybody on each team plays everybody on the opposing team. So there's 16 points up for grabs, which means 8.5 points will win the match. So that's the target score. Anything above 8.5 is just overkill. It's not necessary. 8.5 wins. And let's check the opening in Jennifer's. So Jennifer and Bazvan get the white pieces for this round. Aryan and Magnus start with the black pieces. But essentially, the higher rated players start with black. Because it's board 4 against board 1 and board 3 against board 2 on each team. Okay, so yeah, it was bishop here, b4, queen b3, a4, knight f6, and I guess after this, I mean, yeah, you could take back. I'm wondering if even d6 wants to get played there to be super solid, but yeah, I suppose it makes more sense to take back. My only question is e5, something like this. You know? This always looks just a bit tricky to handle. Queen takes does threaten mate, but you know, there's rook e1 stuff to look out for. Like this, for example, you have bishop h2, queen e1, so there's that. But after bishop h2, you know, what about king f1? The whole thing is just kind of a mess. Knight d2 played, and castle. So, I mean, I don't know what the hell we've got here, but I'll tell you one thing. Magnus is up against it here. He's with the black pieces. I keep forgetting when I switch back to the game, it flips it back to white's perspective. So it's a little annoying. But yeah, Magnus up against their board 4 here. But their board 4 is, you know, 2450 IM. She's a WGM, but more specifically an IM, which is a higher title, which is quite good. She's actually I'm not sure how many people know this, but she's actually the sibling of Praggnanandhaa. So they are brother and sister. Hello, Brendan. Thank you very much. Hello, Mannered Monkey. What's up, Mr. Kurtz? Both lineups, I also want to add, both lineups are 2550 on the dot, which is kind of interesting. Like 2550 is what the average has to be, and I thought it was interesting that both teams actually maximize completely. We obviously have a benefit because we have a 2850 on our team, which is counting as a 2700. They have the benefit of a 2450 counting as a 2350. So, plus they have Vidit, who I think is over 27. So there's some maximizing happening on both sides. Bishop takes b5, by the way. Queen e5 with a nice little tactic there. And if pawn takes, then bishop takes, defends that d pawn again. It's unclear, you know, if or for how long Magnus will be able to hang on to that d pawn, but for the moment he's being a little stubborn. Situations like this, I'm always on the lookout for moves like d5. Like, you know, if white's able to just chill and recapture, that's one thing, but I'm always looking for things like that. Also keep in mind, bishop takes here, queen d6, there's knight f3. So let's say it was white's turn here. You know, this doesn't really do that much because of knight f3, but For example, bishop takes h2, queen here. You might be thinking, okay, this is a better version of that. Well, e5, and even though you take this bishop, you lose that one. So there's actually quite a few tactics in the current position. Magnus has a big lead on the clock, that's what I can say. 7.5 to 3.5 minutes. For the most part, you kind of expect that in a board 1 versus board 4 matchup. But the position, I mean, Vaishali has some pretty interesting preparation stemming from the move d4 early. So this looks like a very competitive game. But the rating advantage might be important. Okay, Aryan here. Black pieces. To me, he already has a good position just based on g3 and e3 being played. Plus, if white wants to play bishop g2, I imagine bishop a6 gets played. Now, what does white do here? Knight e2 and bishop f1 are the only ideas. Bishop f1, I mean, just doesn't feel good, right? You're telling me you're going to play bishop here and then bishop back to f1? Like, what is that? What is that? So knight e2 might stand out as the move, right? To try to castle. But I mean, this can never be good for white. Rook here, knight e4. I mean, I'm not saying black has a winning advantage, but it's definitely comfortable. And white does play bishop f1, which is super surprising. Aryan has a couple minutes time advantage. He's not going to trade and help that king just walk to g2. He might repeat and then decide to trade. He could repeat and play b5. All the power in Aryan's hands here. He can also allow the king to castle and just bring the rooks. But no matter what, I think Aryan has a great start to the game. Time control is, with increment, for sure, they're ribs. Let's jump to another game. 10 minutes with 2-second increment, I believe. This looks like a very familiar opening for me. Even though we got here by a kind of weird Sicilian move order, I've actually seen this from like almost a Nimzo move order before. Black has an idea to play e5 and knight d4. Now, white tends to hold the advantage in these positions. 2 bishops, opportunity to break with b4. But black has that solid idea of e5, knight d4. And I know it's not much, but it's one idea and it's kind of annoying. Knight on d4 is super strong. Askena, thanks for the 300 bits. Starting the church plate. Pass it around. Swinger of Birches, 74, thanks for the 13 months. Your boy Deep Roy, 31 months. And Stockfish with the continued gifted sub support. Let's pop over to... I like Razvan's position, but I'm just saying it requires some accuracy. We're going to pop over to Jennifer Yu on board 4. Let's see how this started. Okay, normal enough. Getting some space in the center. I mean, the thing is, Vidit he knows his opening is worse here, but I think he's maybe doing a different approach than Magnus. Magnus just played the game. He's walked right into probably Vaishali's prep, and he's just kind of going toe-to-toe. Very tactical game. Here, it looks like Vidit has done the other very common approach against, let's say, lower-rated players, where you don't mind taking a worse position. He's definitely a little bit worse here. White clearly has the full center, but this really puts the lower rated player to the test, because they have to, for example, if d5, you're looking at knight c5, e5. If e5, you're looking at bishop takes f3. It can be difficult to make some moves. So 2 very different approaches from the board 1s. For obvious reasons, I like Jennifer's position. I think knight e2, knight g3 is not a bad reroute. The knight's not great on g3, but it supports the pawn, and it gets out of the way of this bishop. The queen guards c4 now. So I understand wanting to put the knight on g3. You see this maneuver a lot in the Ruy Lopez. Let's check in with Magnus's game here, and whoa, seems to be up material already. Rook e1, knight g4, and instead of perhaps knight f3, h3 was played, I think, just missing knight h2. Must have just missed it. And Magnus has a very compact position here. Of course, no queen trade. Now, if you ask me, there's still a little bit of work to be done. But for any good grandmaster, any strong player, this should be a walk in the park. Rook e8. I mean, the rooks are invading here as well. There's pressure on e4. And to be honest, it's extremely hard to launch an attack with just 2 pieces. Especially because, I mean, Black has moves to counterattack in the meantime. So, looks like a great start for Magnus Carlsen, who just won easy material with knight g4. Knight f3 not played. Knight h2 missed. It's a funny looking move, but because of White's rook e1, actually trapped her own rook there. And getting super low on time here is Vaishali. Bishop c3 played, and after bishop takes pawn, bishop c5 also. With less than a minute, I have to feel that Magnus is in great shape to win the first game. We see what she's up to here. Bishop takes. She wanted knight f5, rook g3. So instead, Magnus goes bishop to d4, and likely might want to just take and, you know, make things a lot easier for himself. That dark square bishop off the board means that White's attacking chances are greatly reduced. Kenthrak 1982, thanks for the 16 months. Oudman local hero, 41-month resub with Prime. Thank you, buddy. Rook's coming over. So great position for Magnus. I mean, it seems to be getting better and better. Just going to pop over to Aryan's game here. Looks like it's around even. Maybe slightly better pawn structure for White. Like, it definitely looks better. But when you look at the quality of the pieces, I like Aryan's bishop a lot more. And these knights, although they look good, they actually don't have anywhere to move. Right? These pawns are doing a great job at restricting the knights. So, I think Aryan's position might be a little bit better. But if Aryan isn't precise, I can see this trending in White's direction in a potential endgame. So I would say weaker pawns for White, but they're doing a great job restricting the pieces. So the more pieces Aryan keeps on, I think the better for him. And over here, so we saw this one early on. Yeah, that was this opening. We left it here, and it looks like Razvan goes for the immediate plan of rook b1 and b4. And now, it looks like that e-pawn is dropping, but there are some tactics here to look out for. So Black grabs the center pawn, knight's being attacked, rook's also hanging here on c8. If White took, I think Black was going to take here. Now that I think about it, knight f3 is actually queen h1, big threat after knight e5. Took me a second to notice that, but I believe that's the precise reason why f4 was played. Yeah, so this makes, you know, one threat, but also, more importantly, the biggest threat on the board, knight f3 check. Nasty. So that's why f4 was played. That's why f4 was played. And how's the time here? A time advantage on this board as well. So time's going really well all around. Magnus will just, you know, jump here and just conclude things. I wanted to leave this because it just looked like he was handling things. And no real issues here for Magnus as he finds a nice tactic there with rook b2 at the end. Completely winning. So we start with a win from our board one. Magnus Carlsen, not bad, right? Not bad at all. Jumping to Jennifer's game. e5 and all these exchanges here definitely look like they are in Black's favor. However, solid position for white, but tons of pressure here. So I think this bishop is gonna have to move like to b1 maybe. Bishop c2 somehow feels wrong. Maybe bishop b1. And black is the aggressor. Everything focused on this pawn right here. Plus outside pass pawn potential. So slightly worse and down on time here is Jennifer. We'll see if she can keep it close. I just want to check in with this Razvan game and stay here for a sec because this was like tactical mayhem. f4, bishop takes b1, pawn takes on e5, knight takes on c8, and what's up at the end? Aren't we just up a piece? Aren't we just up a piece? Hang on a sec. Here, queen g6. It's not so simple. There is queen d1. Yeah, so if rook takes, I mean, there's knight takes c4, which sure, that's one thing. Queen g6. But to get out of knight f3 check and to guard our rook, I think we have queen d1. I mean, we have maybe have many moves, queen here, whatever. But yeah, if we just move out of the way, the check itself is not dangerous. So I don't know. Not so bad. So this is the current position, and Razvan has more time, 2.5 extra minutes almost. So he sees a hanging bishop. He's probably just double checking. You know, there are other moves to consider, but he's just double checking, make sure he's not blundering like anything big. And now that I'm, of course, looking at the position, knight f3 and queen g6 will happen first. Could barely even get those moves off before it happened on the board. So right idea, different execution because black's dead lost if he does queen g6 first and knight f3. So of course knight f3 and queen g6 to at least play the game. But I mean, with a pawn defended here, two bishops against the rook, this should be a huge advantage for Razvan. And him starting off with a win would be fantastic. Obviously for the team, but mostly for him. He had a great start to the match last week. You know, he just doesn't always get those full points for his great games. So I think it would be great for his confidence here. Takes, check, and win that rook. So that's not really a danger right now. I'm gonna check in with Aryan's position, who seems to be very, very equal here. He's winning a pawn, so we know that he can't lose the position. He could win it, but I imagine that white, you know, has great chances for a draw here. Like, you know, rook here and takes is pretty serious already. Going back, f5, rook f6. Either way, it's very passive. So I think this one's probably a draw, and also not terribly interesting. So sorry, Aryan. Gonna leave you with that position for the moment. A minute on the clock for Jennifer here, but I have to say this is quite pleasant for Vidit. Nothing over the top special, but just strong pieces, good pawn structure. Jennifer might want to slot that knight into g4 though. That's a big plan now that I see it. Knight h2, knight g4, and queen h6. So I guess taking is an option to continue the plan. But I could see bishop e2. Yeah, I think she wants to do knight here. I'm wondering about knight d3 there, which is a little concerning. Because yeah, if you play f4, you kind of hand the initiative to black a little bit. Aryan is very likely making a draw in his game. In this one, it looks like black's played a5, which is probably the right decision. Even though white is very likely winning here with the b pawn, at least black has counterplay, right? That's how you make positions tricky. That's how you make them tricky. So even though black might be more losing here, he's only got 20 seconds. So I honestly think that the opponent has done a pretty reasonable attempt here, getting his own pass pawn. Razvan has to be careful here. So pretty important games here between Razvan and Jennifer here on board 4, who's holding on. It looks like She played queen c3, rook d3, queen b4. Pin and eyeballing that pawn. If she can just get the knight to g4 or something like that, then I think we'll have a good position. But, you know, easier said than done, for sure. Rook takes h3 is a bit of a threat there, which is why king h1 was played. Definitely. I wonder if knight e6 to g4 will happen. Kind of looks menacing. But again, maybe the knight gets there. I think this game is all about the knight getting to g4. I really do. Like, if a knight ends up there safely, I think Jennifer's position could actually turn out very well. Minute and a half to 20 seconds. She's in a very tough spot here. Yeah, knight e6. So I was thinking knight h2. Not sure if I'm missing something big here. But knight h2, g4, especially with time low on the clock, looks like great maneuver. Okay, queen trade issued. Takes, knight f3, looking for this. Dropping the a-pawn though. Knight h3 is kind of also lurking there as a tricky move. I think this one has actually gone south because even though queens are off the board, black's gonna have two protected pass pawns. Should be kind of tough to manage here. Just to check in with Razvan's game. Bishop takes a1. It looks like black ended up making a queen, but white is pushing all the way, and I don't even see a single check. So Razvan should be winning this with queen d8 check, if nothing more. Queen c6. Beautiful. Super nice game by Razvan. And just to show you quickly what happened, he just pushed the pawns, went bishop d4, queen g3. Probably a huge move there. Even though black's pawn is getting close, it's covered by the bishop. And no, really happy with that game. We're going to stick with the only live game remaining. But Razvan with a fantastic start. Aryan made his draw. It did look super drawish there. He had the black pieces against the 2500. Solid result for him as well. And we'll see what Jennifer can do here. I mean, she's in a tough spot. She's in a tough spot. Rook a1. There's knight e1. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to do. The position looks lost. You've got Vidit also, the guy who's playing the moves. It's not going to make it any easier. So, not much to do there. Yeah, Jennifer loses the first game, and that means that it's a 2.5 to 1.5 result in round one, right? There we go. We'll take that, won't we? 2.5 to 1.5. Both boards fours lost. Aryan made a draw, and Razvan won his game with the white pieces. So honestly, it's like a very professional chess result. The board ones beat the board fours. You know, that is the expected result. Sorry to say. Aryan and his opponent, technically Aryan had the black pieces, so professional draw from Aryan. And then Razvan with the white pieces in the team match and the closer pairing. He's the one that had something to play for, and he got that win. So I think it's a great result to start things off. Really clean game by Magnus. Looked like a very clean game by Aryan as well. Never worried, which is always great in team matches, to just never be, you know, concerned about losses. And then Razvan fought well, super well, honestly. Navigated some complications. We're looking forward to the next round. Let me update some scores. 2.5, 1.5 in our favor. All right. 2.5 to 1.5. Good start. Good start. Minor, thanks for the brand new Prime. Wonka Bar for 29 months with Prime. Widzy, 22 with Prime. And Vic the Man, 74 months with Twitch Prime. Thank you very much. Big Vic. Good start, guys. What'd you think of the round one games? We saw most of the action, honestly. There's not that much to catch up on. I just thought Magnus's game was super clean. Found a nice tactic at the end here. Bishop e4, but that's about it, right? That's all that was needed. This game was pretty much determined by this knight h2 move, just missed by Vaishali. Aryan's game, we didn't see the how it's simplified to that endgame, but okay, so e4 was played. Yeah, and it's just tough to yeah, it's just a super even game the whole way. Not much to say. Hey, nothing to say here. Nice solid result there. We saw this one pretty much all the way through, actually. We didn't miss many moves here. After b5, I mean, he tried to queen this a pawn, but the bishop was here, and then nice move, queen g3. I think this was a great move. If f6 or e5, I mean, they'll be taken. So he decides to go like this. If f6, bishop takes, there's just no stopping mate, right? There's no rook c7. And g6, of course, is suicidal because of queen e5. And so even though black can get a queen here, it's very temporary, and white's two pawns are worth way more than a rook. To the point where, you know, even if this bishop wasn't on the board, it might still be a discussion. Nice finish. Nice finish. Oh, we have Jennifer in the chat cheering on Aryan. I'm going to take a picture of the chat and send it to Aryan so that he knows. So that he knows Jennifer's cheering for him. This should help him a lot. I would not be surprised to see an Aryan win in the next round. Stay tuned. Pistola, thanks for the 34 months with Prime. Aryan about to go undefeated. This is like when Jordan Poole sees a baddie courtside. Waiting for the cams to get back up. Game should get started pretty shortly here. Hello, MapRail. 2.5 to 1.5 first round result. Magnus and Razvan with wins. Aryan with a nice stiff draw. And unfortunately, Jennifer, you lost round 1, but it's always going to be the toughest pairing for a board 4, that first game. Oda FPS. Hey, buddy, thanks very much. Welcome with a new Prime sub. Song name? I think exclamation mark song should work. Just playing it from Spotify here. Here we go. It's weird that the games appeared down here. All right. Looks like the cams kind of got shifted around here. I'm gonna have to do some editing. Where's Aryan? Where did Aryan go hide? Magnus's hair looks wild right now. All right. We've recovered some cams here. Chicken Pants, thanks for the bits. MapRail, cheers, thank you for 1,000 bits. Team's looking good thus far. Passing the collection plate around. Chicken Pants starting it off. MapRail, thanks for the 1,000. Gilfoyle 101, thanks for the 100 bits. Here we go. This is actually, these are the games that we should be using. They weren't available the first time, but these games should be no delay or better. All right, so looks like we got everyone back. Cams are here. And we got some non-delayed games. Oh, Magnus is here. Well, I guess he faced B5. probably the only reason we'll see e3, right? Because I will go out on a limb every single time to chastise the 12-card garage. But it looks like here, Magnus played it just to hit the pawn, force a6, and then went bishop here. Because e3 might be a useful move for white at some point in this line, and a6 is not necessarily that useful for black. All right, early pressure. Maybe if bishop c6 could already see d4. But yeah, Magnus already with like a 2-minute advantage on the clock. He gets the white pieces against Aroniak Ghosh. Tari is playing Vaishali. He seems to have all the time that he started with. So perhaps still in opening prep here, and based on the opening I see that it is, that would not surprise me. f4. Yep, if you just joined, you did miss a round, but we won that round. We're on to round number 2 right now. There's probably some more games that have started. There we go. Looks like Razvans is just underway. Chicken Pants Dark Bone Metal Chess. Thank you for the bits. I always want to remind everyone, and especially thank everyone for the donations that come in, especially during the Pro Chess League streams that we do here. Because the players do get compensated for their time and their services here, and this all helps us pay them what they deserve, you know. So thank you very much for supporting the channel, but more importantly, supporting the team. The team is funded by us and some private donors. So all the support really does make a difference. Helps us put together a strong team like the one that we've got. Hopefully a winning team, a championship team. Yeah, Magnus's hair is a little wild right now, that's for sure. All right, here we go. All 4 games have started now officially. Magnus got a quick d4, d5 in, which, you know, you always feel is just that small edge. That bishop is not very good. Plus, the pawn structure has changed, like imbalanced a little bit. So it should be in Magnus's favor. And he's just going to stop maneuvers like that. And the thing is, when you think of a Benoni, this bishop is actually usually on the g7 square. So the fact that it's on e7 and then it has to go back and maybe to g7 is quite slow. So all those tempi are going to be recouped here by Magnus very nicely. So looks like a nice position for him. Moving on to Aryan's game, f4, f6. It looks very even right now. He's gone back. Maybe we'll see b3 at some point to deal with this bishop, but this move actually has some poison in it that, you know, you might be threatening to take the queen already, and the bishop would have to recapture. Sure, e4 can happen, but for the moment, I'm not sure e4 is the priority. Aryan with what looks to be prep, still moving quite quickly in almost a 2.5-minute time edge already. Meanwhile, our board 3, Razvan Preotu, is up against Vidit. Let's just flip the board here. Playing with the black pieces, and I've actually seen this this line before. Now, I mean, e5 doesn't make a ton of sense here, I feel, because I mean, I've seen these structures before, but I feel like black's going to be too many tempi down. But I have seen e5 get played against the move d4. b6, queen c7, bishop b7 is another way to do it. So we might see setups like that with queen c7, b6. But an early knight a5 sort of says, okay, if you go bishop d3, well, you can't play d4 right away. And if you go bishop b3, well, you know, I'm going to go ahead and take that. So maybe will we see, I was almost thinking queen here to try to play c4. That doesn't look crazy. Knight's not that bad on a5 either. Knight is not bad either. And then Jennifer's position here with the black pieces. Yeah, this looks like a, I mean, white has this easy sort of plan of f4 castle, the knight comes back. But let's be clear, white just gave up the dark square bishop. Yes, there's double pawns, but this is very normal, a very normal type of position. I wonder if e6 and d5 is the plan, or maybe even b5. Personally, I'm seeing Jennifer's position, and I like it a lot. Like, knight on d2 doesn't look anything special, and it's really hard to launch an attack against black's king with no dark square bishop. Just doesn't make sense. So I think you could potentially go already pretty aggressive with moves like b5. But if you want to go more chill, you know, d6 as she's played is just fine. I mean, this is a great position. So I honestly am looking at every board. Don't mind any of the positions, right? I kind of like all of them. Curious what you guys think early on, but I'm going to jump back to Magnus's game here. As it started first, the most action has happened. He's up nearly 4 minutes on the clock and seems to be in a very comfortable spot. But yeah, what do you guys think of the positions? I like them a lot. I think everybody here has a playable game, can play for a win. RPM 549, thank you so much to Ryan for the 5,000 bits. Putting enough in that pot, that collection plate for everyone. Hello to Phil in the chat. Go, Phil. Now, someone was asking earlier, you know, what kind of plans does black have? Or sorry, does white have? Definitely that bishop on f4 was always going to probably reach a different square. But I mean, yeah, you want to play knight c4, but sometimes what you want to do is you want to avoid trading. So like if black plays knight e5, it's nice that white has the option to kick it out. Play king h2. Knight c4. Afterwards, if white plays knight c4 now and black plays knight e5, then, you know, you might not be so keen on trading. Trades are not always the best thing for white in this position. You have more space than black. You want to leave him with as many pieces as possible. So for that reason, I think perhaps Magnus won't be in a big rush to play knight c4 because it can always be answered with knight e5. Now that being said, maybe there's knight b6 there, but I think we may see preparatory moves like king h2 before that. But yeah, these are the ideas. f4, of course, you can't go f4 with the pawn hanging. That's why I'm mentioning king h2. It's also nice to get off this diagonal. And black just played bishop to a8, so obviously wants to initiate some trades here. He's down 3 minutes now, feels a little cramped, wants to trade some pieces. Honestly makes sense. Now that the knight is not attacked, you know, in the event that mass trades happen, technically queen takes b1 is possible. Knight to c4, another idea. And this bishop, while it's nice, may actually take the time to retreat to f1 and actually put some pressure on a6 there. And no, white's not trying to just launch like a kingside attack here. Usually, I mean, there's open lines in the center and on the queen side. You'd be a little crazy to launch a kingside attack, so it's more that this will just gain space and control squares. You're not trying to like push to try to mate. It also looks really likely that a lot of rooks might get traded off the board here. There's a direct open file both sides have access to. That usually means pieces can get vacuumed right off the board. And speaking of pieces getting vacuumed off the board, in Aryan's game, knight d5, mass trades on d5. Definitely slightly worse for Vaishali, but probably not by that much. After rook to c7, which looks like a tremendous move, rook e6 defends the bishop and hits back at that pawn on e2. So I'm looking at this and saying, okay, rook here, white takes, black takes, maybe king f1, right? The rook has to go back. We have an outside pass pawn. Maybe it's nothing special, but it looks like something. Let's say rook e6, maybe even rook e1 takes, right? Let's say king takes, and your king is going to make it to the d3. Remember, this is attack. So let's say here, something like king e2, your king is going to make it to the d3 square. Block that pawn. You have the potential for an outside pass pawn here. I'm looking at lines like this and like what I see. And Aryan's gone straight for this line. I'm just going to stay with this game for a sec. I'm curious if he plays that whole thing I was just looking at, or maybe there's even more good moves available here. But that to me looked like a nice simple way to get a position where you shouldn't lose and you could win. No doubt this move is significantly better than rook e6 now that I'm looking at it, just because it doesn't force anything there. I still like Aryan's position quite a bit because he's got that outside pass pawn. So I'm optimistic here. I really am. Aryan with the white pieces. He's the stronger player. These pawns are weak. I like Aryan's chances here. I do. I know it's not the most convincing advantage, but it's slightly better for white. And sometimes these endgames can be so infuriating to play as black because you feel like you should be, just about equal. Somehow it's just not cashing in. So I like Aryan's chances. I'll leave it at that. I think he's played a good line here where he's the only one with real winning chances. Now let's flip the board to Razvan's perspective here. Yeah, queen c7, c4. So I mentioned earlier black was maybe trying to play c4. Like, this would be no good for white because now the move d4, you're always taking en passant, and these pawns would be weak as a result. Or separated. And white rerouted the knight because he wanted the bishop here and did not want to trade. So now after knight h5, all of a sudden you start thinking, okay, queen g4 starts to get in the mix there. And if bishop f8, crazy thing about this is I think there's actually a win on the board. Knight f6 check. And if takes, this is the second game in a row, by the way, that we've seen a tactic like this. Queen g4 check. King here gets mated. And bishop here, bishop takes f6. And actually I was going to say this is Razvan's second game that he's seen a tactic like this. You guys remember knight f3 check in the previous game? Instead, Razvan does this. G6 is not a nice move to play. Believe me, Razvan is not thrilled about that. But the reason he did it was because of that knight f6 check. And I think he was planning to play e5 here. It's not possible now. White's position looks extremely comfortable to me. I'm wondering how Razvan kicks this bishop out. It's got to be with the knight, but like, how do we get there? It's just like a weird square to attack, and f4 locks that bishop in. There's no seeky pawns. I mean, I think he's trying to bring the knight here, but it's tricky. I'm not saying this is winning for white, but this looks really really comfortable. So I will say it looks like Vidit has got what he wants here. He's got an edge. Looks extremely comfortable. I mean, Queen h4 is just getting covered here, you know? It's just so touch and go. So, all right. All right. Magnus also won that quickly. What the hell happened here? Magnus just annihilated his opponent. Knight b6. Everybody takes. Knight c4. Queen a4. Double attack. I mean, Magnus just went to town here. Rook being hit on e8. I mean, this is like the most solid structure ever, right? I mean, that's an annihilation. That is an annihilation. So a crush from Magnus. I didn't expect the game to end that fast. Meanwhile, Tari wins a pawn. Has a pawn hanging, but of course that would give up the outside pass pawn. This is not a, a win for sure, but one move you have to be careful of is don't play a move like that, right? Rook to a7 would walk right into this. So there you go. There's something to be careful of. This still requires a lot of technique, but hey, I think if you're Aryan here, you're just laughing to the bank. This is a game only you can win. We can look more at Magnus's game in detail afterwards, but that was, I mean, I'm super impressed by the technique there. He crushed his opponent from a position that looked like he was slightly better, but nothing more. Like, maybe slightly is not giving enough credit. It looked like a very good position, but it didn't look like one that I knew how to just, win easily. And he made it look easy. So, Aryan, great chance here. Should draw, maybe can win as well. I love his chances for a win. That's what I've been calling for. Meanwhile, here, Razvan has kind of, he's wiggled. He's wiggled. He's got knight e8. He's got f6. And, it's not my favorite position, but he's struggling. e5, though, with the rook loose on d8, that's annoying. But I see what he's up to. He wants knight here and knight into d4. Right? That was the idea. So after g4, I mean, the first thing I'm looking at is there something just completely insane like this? g5 takes. And do we just take back? Queen takes. Rook f8. And just say to white, okay, what's next? Your pieces don't control this. And in fact, now your bishop is completely blocked. This is a very resourceful attempt here by Razvan. I'm actually, personally, I would even say I'm surprised that the eval bar likes this so much for black. But I think it's just long term. That bishop is no longer participating. You can maybe go king h8. There might be some sacks like knight f5 with rook g7 or g8. Razvan, very defensively resourceful. And still, I have to be honest, I'm surprised the eval bar is liking this as much as it is. The knight clearly can't move, and if you go back here, still dominated, but just to control the f-file and that great queen placement is enough. Because you have some long-term threats of queen f3, king over rook g8. I mean, this is highly energetic from Razvan. I'm loving it. And look at that, Aryan, like I was calling for, buddy. Way to go. He decided to walk that king out. a7, and this is just classy technique from Aryan. I was calling for this win a while ago. I knew Aryan had the energy. This was a great opening, I thought. 2 wins from our board 1 and our board 2. The Norwegians, great start. We're going to stick with the live action here, but Aryan with a great win here. Just grinding down a slightly better position. Okay, love the chances here from Razvan. I'm just going to jump to Jennifer Yu's games. I want to know what's going on here. Jennifer has such low time. Looks like she's got a great position. She's got the rook swinging over. The rook coming in here, though, is a little bit annoying. I think she's got great chances. Only 20 seconds though, so severe time pressure. Well, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. If the rook moves, queen takes d3 is always on offer. And rook sliding over to f6, queen g4. This is a weird position. I'm not going to go back and check the game just yet. We can look at that after. But Jennifer fighting time pressure here. Otherwise looks close to equal. And hang on a sec. If I'm not mistaken, we have a little threat here. Queen f1 is checkmate. Queen f1 is checkmate incoming. And the rook is hanging. So do you have to play rook back to d2? That's a disaster. Then like rook f4 or queen c1. I missed queen c1, but still rook f4. Guys, Razvan is absolutely killing it right now. To find that g5 thing, and look how quickly the position turned around. Queen f3 with mate on f1, force the queen to retreat. Bishop is doing absolutely nothing. As soon as this pawn goes down, if that pawn gets lost, the endgames might be good. The knight somehow starts to join all the action. Rook takes g4 is a big time threat. And this bishop is a non-participant. Razvan now with a minute extra. I know Jennifer's game is going at the same time, but this one is too exciting. I'm going to stay here until the finish. But rook f4 is a massive move. And wait, he just blundered it. He just blundered it. He just blundered it. He got to do queen f1 mate. Oh my goodness, that's gross. He got to do it. The idea just slipped Vidit's mind. Unbelievable. Let's stick with our last live game. Right now, it's a 3-0 in this round. I can't even believe I'm saying that. Jennifer is down a pawn, but with rook takes here, queen takes here. I mean, anything can happen. There's always a bailout with queen f5 to trade queens. Maybe she should have gone for it. She is in a tough spot because queen takes d4 now, trades the queens, and wins that final pawn. But she'll have a pass pawn going into a rook endgame. I think h5 is the more disturbing of the available moves, just because it's hard to meet those kind of threats. Ooh. No queen f5 though, so annoying. Rook g5, stopping the move to trade queens. Ugh, that's just frustrating. Rook d2 is a reasonable move. She's got 4 seconds though. 4 seconds. And the thing is here, white has such serious threats with rook takes g6. It's like, yeah, you have to move the king, but pawn takes. Look, I'm a broken record because if I was in the same position, I mean, wouldn't it be happening the same way? I'd be down to 2 seconds and flagging. There's a reason I'm in the commentary booth. Let me say that. So I can really empathize here with Jennifer and her time trouble, but that's been the main difference because look at the board. I mean, this is not bad for Jennifer at all. A bit of a slip up there, blundering the H pawn, but I mean, she earned her equality here. Could not pull it out. It is going to be a 3-1 match, round victory, I should say, which is fantastic. Let's focus on the good things. Jennifer's 2 games that she has the best chance in rating-wise are going to be her next 2. So I hope she does a lot better there. As usual, though, to field such a strong roster at the top, you always have to have someone on board 4 who's just, you can't say it any other way. They're going to have a rough time. They're going to play 4 games against maybe 4 GMs, at least 4 2,400 plus players, and it's just not always easy. So, Jennifer, hang in there. Hang in there, girl. You got 2 more games. Tough one here, but hey, 3-1 round victory. We take those. We take those. I'm going to look over some of our positions here, but that's just a great round for the team. 3 big wins. And let me update some scores. So that should put us up to 5.5 to 2.5. 5.5 to 2.5. There we go. Scores are updated. All right, so I was just gonna briefly, I mean, Magnus's position looked good here. Great position. But it's not a position that I would envision myself winning in like less than 15 moves, you know? Knight a4, and after knight b6, just trades galore. And white's pieces end up better. I mean, look at the quality of black's pieces, especially the knight and the bishop on a8, right? It's not even close. Compare that to these two pieces. I mean, look at that. I was just checking. Aryan would like to thank the chat for the well wishes. He won that game as expected. I told you guys, I let him know that the chat was cheering for him. One person in particular, he would like to thank the chat, but specifically, you know who's on his mind. Queen a4, forking the rook and the pawn, and that's not the first time Magnus used that idea. This was the other one. It's not a fork, but just hitting that rook. And look at this poor rook, right? After white, takes the c pawn, gives up the a pawn. Look at the follow up. You got two bishops taking away some squares from the rook. The rook doesn't have any squares left. The rook gets hit again, and then when it finally finds a safe square that it can shuffle to, it's completely lost. I mean, this is just unreal. That poor rook. What did it do all game, right? It sat on e8. It got attacked once, and the whole team's like, gotta take care of this guy. Then it gets hit again, and it's like, right when black was gonna do something, it's like, damn it, gotta take care of that guy. And then when black is doing something again, it's like, man, you just can't get comfy, can you? Rook a7, and it's over. So nice win by Magnus there. Aryan's game was more technical, so this won't be, there's not so much I can show here, but yeah, rook b4, everybody takes, h5 played, and I don't think Vaishali played terribly, but the thing is that a pawn, you can see it runs to a6, maybe to even to a7, right? Maybe to a7 where it's defended, and then just move that rook and queen the pawn, right? Like, this is a very dangerous a pawn. And then he decides, look, the pawn is close enough. It's time to run that king out. Yeah, because even if you go back to a2, a7, rook b8, and a8 is happening. Super nice conversion there. And, I mean, there we go. There we go. I knew Aryan was going to come out of the gate. He had the white pieces. That's important. And then this was the biggest flip of the round. I mean, it definitely looked, I wouldn't say like dire here, but you know, white has a clear advantage. I like white's position here. And the funny thing about the way that Vidit played is, I have to be honest, it kind of looked normal. It looked natural. Look at this. E5, like taking advantage of the pin, hello. Knight g7, and look, you can take, then comes knight here, and you can see yourself maybe losing that pawn. Like, I'm not saying it's forced, but you could convince yourself very easily that that's going to happen. And then you're like, okay, why would I allow that when this just keeps things under control? G4, and the knight has absolutely no squares. And despite that, I'm still a bit shocked that G5 is this strong. Like, G5 completely sidelined Vidit here. It just floored him. because he wins a pawn. The knight's still stuck. But it's all about just doubling on the f-file. And all of a sudden, you're just better. Much better. Queen f3 threatening mate in 1. Queen c1. And he guarded that mate. But I'm not... Maybe he was aware of the mate here. I just forgot about it later. That happens. Or he played queen c1. Didn't realize that the mate was threatened. And then blundered it later. It looks to me like he saw it, obviously. And just totally forgot about it here. Because guess what? What are you supposed to do? Rook takes g4. I don't know what white does here. h3 is not possible. This bishop is so useless. And it's just funny because the knight seems totally useless as well. But it's all about these 3 major pieces on the open file being significantly better than their counterparts. And if we can have this bishop and this knight both not doing anything, that's a win for black, you know? That's like when you're... You know, this is like... This knight on g7 right here. This is like Patrick Beverley, you know? When he was on the Lakers, right? He's just playing that tight defense, right? Then all of a sudden, he's playing one of his old teams, the Clippers, right? You got Paul George over there. Now, him and Paul George get into a little kerfuffle, a little argument, a little pushing, a little shoving. Both guys get double technicals, ejected. That's a net win for the Lakers. That's what I'm saying right now. This guy is Patrick Beverley status. He wasn't doing anything anyway. But when you're able to neutralize Paul George, take both of you out of the game, fantastic. That's a win for the team, all right? So, queen c2, and hey, he got to finish off with queen f1, checkmate. That is awesome. Getting to sack your queen against a 2700 caliber player does not happen every day. There you go. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And thank you so much for the support. Look at this. We got Smokahontas, 5 gifted subs. Jumpy, gifting a sub to check. Penguin, thanks for the prime. Comp Bio, 25 months. Again, really appreciate the 5 bomb from Smokahontas. JC Digital Girl, 1500 bits. MapRail, 2000 bits. Go, Jennifer. Indeed. I think Jennifer Yu needs our energy for the last couple rounds. I really want her to do well. She's had some tough pairings. She's playing good chess. She needs to speed up. That's my diagnosis. Tim Cannon, thanks for the 1,000 bits. Darkbone, 100 bits. And Treble with Chess Base, 100 bits as well. What an awesome finish. I think Razvan has been a highlight so far. Been playing amazing. Really happy to have him on our team. I think that's a great pickup considering the rating that he's at and the level that he can play at. Razvan has actually improved a lot in recent time, so that's great. It's good to see. Improving his chess. Chessbrahs did win week 1. We won against the Charlotte Cobras, but we barely won week 1. If anyone was there, you guys remember, it was a lot of fun. Super entertaining match. Magnus put the team on his back, carried us with a final round swindle like I've never seen before, honestly. And that one game was the difference because we only won the match 8.5 to 7.5. The slimmest of possible margins. The one thing I'll say about this format, as you all can appreciate how difficult it is for a board 4 to succeed here. You're just up against insanely tough players every round. The one thing that sucks for board 4 is the final game you play is against the board 4 on the other team. So it's like, by the time you play the game that you have statistically, let's say, the best chance of success in, your confidence is beaten down because you've been losing playing 25, 26, 2700s, 2800s, depending on which team you're on. Like, you've just been playing strong players, grandmasters almost every single game. And it's like, I wonder what kind of confidence you have by the time you get to the game where you're supposed to have the best chance. So I'd say the mental is tough for those board fours in the Pro Chess League, but it does make for those kind of Cinderella stories, those moments where I think Hikaru lost to Josephine Heinemann from the Berlin Bears. You know, moments like that don't happen, you know, too much outside the PCL. So you get some opportunities for special moments like that, but for the most part, you're losing a lot of games to some very strong players. So it can be difficult to to stay confident. Waiting for the next round to start. Don't think I'm missing any games here. Everyone looks really relaxed and chill on the cams. So what is the next round? I think that Magnus plays against Raunak Sadwani. Aryan plays against Vidit. Is that right? Razvan plays against Vaishali. And Jennifer plays against Aroniak Ghosh. Pretty sure that's it. Now it should be like 1 plays 2, 2 plays 1, and 3 plays 4, 4 plays 3. And then in the final round, board 1 plays board 1, 2 plays 2, etc. What are the average rating rules? You can read more about them, but essentially if you're over 2700, it doesn't matter. You count as a 2700, so obviously we get extra value having Magnus on the team because he counts as a 2700 for the purposes of average rating, but he's obviously stronger than that. Same thing for the women on your team. If for example, Ju Wenjun on, I think she's on the Shanghai Tigers. She counts as a 2350, but her rating might be 2550, 2600. Counts as a 2350 for the purposes of rating average calculation. So if you have a strong player or if you have a woman on your team, both of those can help. You can really manipulate the average rating based on that. (3-1) and it's over. That's correct, C. Gillette. Remember, guys, the target score is 8.5, so the match could technically end in this round right here, but we would need another round the exact same as we just had. Like, we just had a 3-1 round, which is super, you know, tough and unusual. That doesn't happen every day. If we're able to do that again, the match would actually be over. Oh, this is a little annoying. The games don't just pop up. I have to click refresh. I tell you, this is not the smoothest. Not the smoothest. Well, all the games are up right now. I'm sitting there on the home screen waiting for them to start. They've already started. Here we go. All right. Magnus. Black pieces. Playing against Raunak Sadwani, the board 2 for the Indian Yogis. This looks familiar to me. Oh, Magnus going for a Taimanov here. Looks solid enough. He's chilling, he's chilling. Can Geary and Carlsen both play at the same time? Yeah. They'll both count as 2,700. And then that means to get a 2,550 average, right? We need to go and find two 2,400s, right? So you could have a lineup like that for sure. All right, so Magnus has a decently comfy looking Sicilian here. Traded off the dark square bishops. Rook d8, maybe he wants to play b6, bishop b7. Or what is more standard, and something that, you know, usually happens in these lines, you play e5, but only once you're sure that you've dealt with the dark square bishops. The one thing you never want is you never want to play e5 when this knight can still be taken. So if white had a dark square bishop to play bishop g5, even if black had a bishop as well, takes, white would get this nice d5 square. As it stands, the only way you can take that square right now is to have a pawn recapture. That's not as dangerous for black. Not even close. What's annoying is if white gets that square for his pieces. But here, I think Magnus is going to go bishop e6, rook c8, rook d8, these kind of things. Maybe knight a5. I like his position so far. Nothing special. I mean, white's still doing great, but I think Magnus has got some trades in. He's a little bit ahead on the clock, minute and a half. He's probably happy. All right, Aryan. Let's take a look at Aryan's position with the black pieces. I'm looking at knight f5 castle. There might be some theory going on here, guys. I'm not the most familiar with this. I'll be the first to say. Knight back to e3. Doesn't want to get sniped by that bishop on c8. And important after f4 that black has to move f5. I wouldn't be surprised if this is still even some kind of theory. g3, c6, bishop d3. I mean, these guys are motoring right now. Go Aryan. You gotta beat Vidit at his own game. Theory bras. Even if this isn't theory, let's say, it definitely looks like something they've analyzed. Both of them, that is. Okay, Razvan with the white pieces against Vaishali here. Let's just take a look. Yeah, same opening that he played in the first round. If we remember that. Yeah, nice opening. I like the position so far for Razvan. He's got to be happy here. This looks like a good start. Knight back, just to say, you know what? Black clearly wants to trade pieces. So much so that knight e5 is the move. But black clearly wants to trade pieces. They don't have as much space. White would rather keep pieces on the board. Maybe knight d4, knight c6 draw, you know? No, but knight here, you really don't want to trade pieces. And Razvan has actually taken that to heart. He says knight d2. Like, when I say I don't want to trade pieces, I'm dead serious. I don't want to trade pieces. Knight d2. Refusing at all costs. I'm looking to play rook c1. A time advantage here as well. I'm actually going to check Aryan's game again. They're about even on time. Magnus had a time advantage. Aryan has a time advantage. Sorry, Razvan has a time advantage. And Jennifer's game, let's have a look. Against the Ronyak Gosh. Okay, knight e2, knight ge2, Nimzo Indian here. I've played this line a few times. Bishop d2, so sometimes I've even seen ideas where you play like, you know, knight f4, rook a2 and swing that rook over. g4, knight g3, but bishop d2 played. I feel like bishop d2 is, like oftentimes you want to leave that bishop on c1. You know, this knight could make it to c4. So I've seen ideas where that bishop actually stays on c1 and you go like b3, swing the rook over like this. But bishop d2, if you could get the bishop to e1 and f2, that could be a pretty good idea. c5 makes me think about knight b5, just as a first instinct. Knight b5, like, takes, and then take back. And then if you move the bishop, then I want to take and drop a knight there. You know, it's not the best because this bishop wants to go here, but it just can't. It's not the best position, but I mean, it does blockade things temporarily. But I think even though bishop d2 looks natural, maybe it's not the right move. I'm not sure. Knight b5 played by Jennifer, to me, makes a lot of sense. Hitting the bishop. Knight c6 is another way to play, but if I'm getting that bishop, in general, I'm pretty happy. So the annoying thing for Jennifer here is that this knight is not gonna, sorry, this bishop is not gonna find it so easy to reach f2. If you could just jump there, you'd be happy. Because then, you know, you can play queen d2, the bishop's guarding that pawn, it's on this diagonal, lots of good things. For now, it does look like she wants to take here, plant something on d4. Maybe you could play rook c1 in between here. Yeah, she's gone for what looks like the most natural. I still think black has an easy game here. Knight c6, queen b6. Tons of pressure on this setup. You know, rook c1 can be played. And if queen b6, I'm starting to wonder. Starting to wonder what comes next. So annoying that this bishop can't go here or here because that e3 pawn is loose. So I think that's actually a big theme in the position right now. All right, let's check back in with some of these positions. What the heck is happening here? Oh man, Magnus is dominating. Knight d2, allowing knight d4. That already looks wrong. Rook c1. White is all of a sudden so passive. f4 gets played, but queen b6. There's actually ideas. Queen b6. Maybe rook takes c3. Knight e2. Gotta be careful here. Queen takes b2. Am I reading this wrong? I mean, I know the position's not great, but did white just resign? Is this like an error? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, in a close match like this, don't you play on? You just resigned here. Look, I don't think it's a good position. I think it's lost. But you still play, don't you? I don't know. Anyway, it says he won. So the match is actually, the game's actually over. I'm just kind of shocked. Anyway, moving to the next game here. Moving to the next game. That's really surprising. He actually just resigned the game. Makes no sense to me, but... Magnus, 3 out of 3 so far. Absolutely dominating. In this game, this looks like probably what both players even expected from the opening. Queen e7. If queen b6, I think b4 is always there. Yeah, he's not familiar with the stick on the ice concept. Exactly. Arian's knight on g6 is no bueno. That's for sure. Knight e6 and knight here are threats. I should say specifically knight here looks a little nastier. Knight here and knight here. There is queen b6, so they're not immediate threats, but white's threatening to threaten. Meanwhile, this knight needs some improvement. Like, it's really bad where it is right now. If that knight was on f6, black's position would be tremendous. So Arian has a little bit of work to do, but he's probably familiar with this position. It looks like both players are. Knight takes queen e7, and I believe that knight is indeed trapped in there. And if b4 to support the knight, I mean, b4 comes with its own weaknesses, right? All of a sudden that pawn is loose. I think you want to start to reroute this knight. And of course there is b6 and c5. So knight b3 played instead. White wants to go knight b3, maybe a3, rook e1. It's a solid position for Vidit, but I think Aryan's playing great. I like what he's got going on here. Now, as for Razvan, I think we saw it around here. He wanted to refuse the trades of the knights there. Then he got knight e4 in. Interesting position. Not a lot of forced trades here. The bishop stops rook d8. Bishop there. And yeah, I guess the bishop's going to come back. Usually you want to take the opportunity to force the king in the corner. Bishop's lined up right against it. And in any endgame, white's going to be one move short compared to previous. This one looks very even. We have a time advantage for Razvan here. But other than that, I think Vaishali's played really well thus far. She's got some trades in. She's got her pieces to good squares. I don't dislike Razvan's position, but definitely looks very equal. So 2 games that could swing in either direction. And I'm going to take a look at Jennifer's position now. I think we left it right around here. Knight c6, b4. Trying to force the issue and not allow the queen to get there. That's the one thing. If you play rook c1, queen b6, and now if you go b4, well, you're just losing a pawn. So she decides to go b4 immediately. Bishop back. Now there's no way to add pressure. And she gets the knight there. Rook e1 finally defends this thing, and bishop b4. So to Jennifer's credit here, I think she's made tremendous progress. Knight supports this pawn. Rook supports this pawn. Bishop supports, well, covers the d3 square. So I think Jennifer has made significant improvements. She's also equalized on time, which is great. She's always been down on time, I feel like, in this match, or maybe in the Pro Chess League in general. So good signs on Jennifer's board, and it looks like the other two are about equal. This one as well. So all 3 boards could go in either direction. Magnus already won his game, so of the 3 games remaining, we need 2 points. If we can get 2 points from the last 3 games, the match will actually end. Because right now, 5.5 to 2.5, Magnus won already. So 6.5 to 2.5. Which means we only need 2 more points for the victory. And it could happen this round. It could also, obviously, of course, happen next round as well. But hey, we've had some scary round 4s, haven't we? We've had some scary round 4s, so I wouldn't mind securing the old match in round 3, would I? Buck81, thanks for the Prime sub, 25 months. Matthias Volps, thanks for the 100 bits. Yeah, agreed, Ubitsia. Second rank is a little bit weak here. I think that's just the nature of the opening, right? Second rank has been weak pretty much ever since this. So it's true, but very much part of the opening design. And, you know, white's just going to go moves like queen d2, perhaps rook c1. And I personally play this opening, same as Jennifer. So I think as white, you can't hope for too much more than what you've got on the board. Black does the expected. There's no other prospects for that knight. Knight here actually ties white's queen down to that pawn. So queen d2, for example, would drop a very important pawn. So knight e6 makes a lot of sense. Gonna flip the board here. Aryan's POV. So what happened here? Knight e7. Aryan's down to 20 seconds, I just realized. Queen f7. So knight here was threatened, and that pawn is threatened. Queen here takes knight f5, and Aryan is down a clear pawn here because of queen a7, there is b4. I wouldn't necessarily say he missed it, but Aryan he doesn't have a lot of time. Right? So he's clearly worse here. a3 might be the move from Vidit next. But then again, now that I'm thinking about a3, I mean, there's queen a7 and b4. I mean, you're kind of dropping a pawn, so not sure you want to go for a3. But I'm just thinking, pawn's attacked, needs to be defended. Maybe even king h1. King here looks wrong because knight e3 is always lurking. But Aryan is in tough. Last time we looked, time was around even, position was around even. It's gotten worse. It has gotten worse. So 24 seconds for Aryan, reminiscent of Jennifer Yu's time pressure. a3 played. I thought queen a7 was a good reply to that. Obviously, b4 has to happen. And, I mean, I guess taking, is that a little too much? I feel like Aryan's going to do it, but then again, the move g4 comes after that. Queen d4. I think that's how the position can spiral out of control. So probably great decision for Aryan not to take that. King probably wants to reroute. It's hanging always by the rook, and it is a weak pawn, so unless white's going like this, that'll always be loose. Let's take a look at Razvan's position. Rook d8. Keeping some pieces here. But while white's getting sort of sidetracked on the queen side, black's bringing pieces in on the king side. Still, position is solid. Knight takes h3 is a threat right now. I'm looking at knight d4. Not good enough. Taking feels really bad. You don't want to do that. King g1. I mean, I'm looking at knight takes h3. So here's the thing. If king g1, knight takes h3, and queen g6, oh, look at those damn bishops, right? That's insane. So Razvan was not happy to do that move. He's about equal on time. Definitely after that move, he's slightly worse. There's no way around it. These bishops are super strong. But to be honest, he probably just didn't see an answer to knight h3. I mean, that move's super, super strong. I'm still struggling to think what I would do here. King g1's not playable. g3's not playable. f3 looks crazy. Is it like a tactical idea? Like just take the pawn and live? I don't know. It looks like a tough position. He probably played a decent practical choice. It sucks to give up the dark square bishop, but guess what? He was in a tough spot. I don't think he saw a way out. Aryan's position, king g8. The rooks are doubling. He's got 5 seconds. And he might need to trade rooks here. No, pawn takes instead. Aryan goes for it. Probably the right decision, right moment. If push, we can go queen e7. We can also move the queen away and bring the knight back. Probably queen e7 makes sense. Aryan's evened up in the material, but white clearly has the push here. I'm going to stay with this position for the moment, just because I see 5 seconds for Aryan. He's blockaded the pawn. He's probably a few moves away from a big recovery. Still huge advantage for Vidit, but you know, this rook is about to cycle back. Knight d6 stuff. Yeah. And what is white concocting? Like knight d7, knight f6 somehow? Yeah. This is the move I've been looking for. I like rook a8. The rook wants to be sort of near the action, I think. 1 second. He gets knight f5 off. Probably. Oh, if rook here, there's knight d7, so rook e8. g4 is nearby. Also, knight d7. Knight d7 is hurtful here. That pawn is loose, so here there's queen e3 check. Hang on, it's not so easy. Queen e3 check. If you don't see better, you might have to go for it. Now with this move, knight d7 and knight f6 hurts Aryan. Oh, that's tough. That's tough. He's going to go king here. Is there... Oh, knight h7. Missed that move myself. Aryan loses this game. I think here the moment was maybe you had to go for this. Really rough endgame though, so I can understand why. He didn't like the look of it. Razvan is a little bit worse here. For sure. Nothing like, you know, resignable or anything, but I think black has a significant advantage. Engine doesn't think so. I think in practice it's kind of significant. Meanwhile here, Jennifer has gone e4, has more time than her opponent, and after bishop g2 is planning to take here with mass simplifications. like takes queen c5, hitting the a pawn, hitting the d pawn. I think Jennifer's position is very even. Still, either side could win it. So Razvan looks slightly worse here, but oh, okay. I mean, it's definitely a worse position, but at least with bishop takes knight, you guys can very clearly see the drawing chances, right? White wants to trade queens very badly. Still, very pleasant position here for Vaishali, but I think Razvan has never been closer to equality in a while. So, meanwhile, let's see what's happening here. Rook e3. Am I missing something? Like, this move felt so natural. Rook e3, and it's like, why play this position instead? Still, I can see the king making a journey, but black's gonna play for like e5, bishop f7. Ooh, is there bishop h3 there? Was there bishop h3? No, I was thinking bishop h3, bishop e6, but there was bishop f7. Oof, this looks close. Bishop here. Because now you're stuck in this position where you're slightly worse. Bishop d5. I don't like the way this is trending. I didn't understand why not pawn takes pawn there by Jennifer. I have to go back and look at it. Maybe there was something kind of obvious, but if black gets this, no, Jennifer's got the wrong idea here. Yeah, I think this is a very easy win for black. Rook f7, king c5. Unfortunately, this is going to be, I think a very easy win now. Yeah, that moment very strange to me. Why not pawn takes pawn? Trying to think what was missed. Yeah, this is over. There's absolutely no chance here. Let's stay with the live game. Razvan, I mean, should be making a draw here for sure. He's got everything covered, but black is better. Make no mistake. Make no mistake, right? On push wants to happen. King g5. This is not so easy. e4 is happening, guys. You have to bring your queen back, but then e4. Oh my goodness, what the hell? This has gone south. e4. I don't see any moves. You got to take and go like queen f, queen check. I mean, this is awful. Queen takes h4, queen g5. Should do it. That round could not have ended in worse fashion. Truly. Right? We talk about 3-1s for us. What about 3-1 for them? That's what just happened. That could not have ended worse. Jennifer's position just went from equal to clearly worse. Aryan's position, to be fair, he was struggling for the most part. That one looked like our worst board. But Razvan losing this endgame as well is just desperate. And yeah, this is resignable. And guess what? In case it mattered, the pawn is the right color here. Yeah, so that is a big choke to get 0 points out of, you know, Magnus won his game early, so he already won, and we got 0 points out of the other 3 boards, which means we absolutely have a match right now. Why does it feel like it always happens this way? We absolutely have a match right now. 6.5 to 5.5, a huge comeback. Only 2 points are needed for the match victory now, but why these stressful round 4s every single time? Look at Magnus, he's falling asleep, he's winning so quickly. Crazy finishes. Round 4 has to be exciting for the fans. Is that the memo? 6.5 to 5.5, a 3-1 round for the Indian Yogis. Magnus looks like he's trying to score 4 out of 4 and then fall asleep. Aryan with a tough game. I mean, he was playing Vidit. That looked like one of the toughest positions of the round for us. Razvan, you know, despite his amazing play today, unfortunately loses his endgame. Now, after e5, it's not so simple, right? The only check on the board looks to almost lose the game immediately. So if you're not giving the check, what are we doing here with less than 10 seconds? Like bishop e4, right? I'm immediately thinking, hang on a sec, what about queen takes f2? Because if you move the bishop, I think it's lost. And if you take it, this is also lost. You can go here. Black just gives up the pawn. There might be some tricks here, but no, like it should be losing. Pretty convincingly as well. You have to do it now, actually. I'm just realizing. If you don't do it now, you're dead. Just realized, as soon as black plays here, you don't have this option anymore. Takes will lose. But you have to see this possibility as soon as you play bishop e4, which is not that easy to do. I mean, this is crazy. And if you don't play bishop e4, then what? Because e4, I mean, I guess technically e4 is not a threat. So maybe you just do nothing. Let's go here. And if king g5, I mean, look at the draw that the engine gives. Basically, to me, why I'm scared, why anyone would be scared, is king g5 threatens e4. And it seems lost. The only move, according to the engine, to save it is bishop e8 in this position. And that's not an easy draw to spot. Not easy at all. Now, you can also play bishop c8 here. This is another good move. But again, we're sitting here like spending 10 minutes on this, you know, verifying with the engine. When you're sitting there in the game, I don't necessarily think those moves are so obvious, especially because this move allows queen g5 and then e4. So bishop c8, even though it makes some sense, actually after queen check and e4, I still think black holds a serious practical edge, and it's really just because queen c3 is there that it's not dominating. So this should really be a draw, but pretty good, I have to say, pretty good job by Vaishali. In practical terms, this is not easy at all. It really isn't. So this was our toughest result. The other thing I wanted to check was Jennifer's board. I was like blown away by no pawn takes pawn. So what was going on here? Pawn takes pawn to me looked necessary. I was suggesting queen c5. Maybe you can even go, I don't know, queen c8, whatever. I was suggesting queen here, hitting 2 pawns. And I mean, yeah, we might get checked here, but I can just shuffle my king. I can, you know, make a draw, whatever. This pawn is going to be dead next. And if you defend it with the only move available, I'm going to take this. And I don't know who's better there, but we both have a pawn. So this was the game to me that's the most disappointing, because I think Razvan's position was honestly still very tricky. Like even strong players would admit, but this position is not a simple draw with white. Black stands much better, even though the engine is giving 0.0. Arian's position was tough. He was down on time. I mean, those losses are going to happen to a guy like Vidit. But this game was particularly bothersome because it looked like Jennifer set this whole thing up. Like e4, she knew she was losing this f3 pawn. She knew she had bishop g2. And then rook e3 came, and I'm like, just so surprised. Like, isn't this the whole point? Because if you go throw in queen b6 check, not only do I have queen e3, but even if I step away, like, I mean, this pawn is just hanging. So I don't know. This no pawn takes pawn here is a little bit strange. Rook e3 handed an extra pawn to the opponent, and it's very understandable that you could lose this game. And unfortunately, we did in just a couple moves. So We're going into the final round with a lead, 6.5 to 5.5, but it was 5.5 to 2.5 previously. So we need 2 points from this round. It's going to be everybody matched up, right? So Aryan will play against Raunak, Magnus against Vidit, Razvan will play against Aronyak Ghosh, and Vaishali against Jennifer. So we only need 2 points, which means if we tie the last round, we win the match. Also, we only need 1.5 points to guarantee that we go to essentially tie breaks. But we have the lead right now, so we want to close out this match, and we're going to need 2 points to do so. Board 1 plays board 1, 2 plays 2, 3 plays 3, etc. Thank you to Dan the Man, 16 months, Chicken Pants, Dark Bone. Thanks for the 100 bits. Jumpy, appreciate the 6 subs from you. Chris Bow for half a year. Hype Chest, 26 months with Prime. Aglo, thanks for 3 months with Prime. Going into the last round, which boards do I like? Well, first of all, let's remember, if I have this right, Magnus and Aryan, I think, are they the ones that get the white pieces? So, I mean, Magnus with white, you always get a good feeling there. Same with Aryan, honestly. Aryan hasn't had the worst day. He had a tough game against Vidit, but, I mean, Vidit with white, you're going to lose a certain percentage of the games. Like, it's going to happen. So I think Aryan's board is important. And obviously Jennifer's board is important. This is a big match, big game for the entire match for sure. Could PCL be considered a norm? Definitely not. Until FIDE, you know, and I don't say this because I think FIDE should do this, but I'm saying until FIDE makes it official that, you know, you can score norms in online events, definitely there's no such thing. And I don't think they should be making that official because you're going to have people becoming GMs overnight, like Chessbrahs. It would just be an absolute shit show. Until you have a proctor in every single room of every single competitor, I don't think you can get as serious as like rating events online or offering norms. Like, that's just crazy. Too sketchy in my opinion. Just gonna refresh here, make sure I'm not missing any games. I imagine they're about to start, probably in like 2 minutes. Magnus looks tired as hell. Where's our match here? Still don't see it. Don't think it started yet. Thanks, Captain, over 15 months. Bazmaniac, 28. Cinemoto, 62-month resub with Prime. Thank you, Cinemoto. Oh, here we go. Just started. Darkbone, thanks for gifting a sub to Dirk Diggler 21 months. All right, we have our first game underway. 6.5 to 5.5, guys. The last round is always a sweat with us, isn't it? Always a sweat. All right, we see B3, and for those that don't know, B3 as a system, like a serious option for white, was definitely made most popular by Adiban and his I think Chessable course on B3. And because Adiban did it, definitely all the Indian grandmasters and strong players who study and train together, they definitely all know about it. So Magnus, I think with a little, a little bit of trolling, is playing B3 here. But he's played it tons of times, and it's a legitimate weapon for sure, especially in rapid like this. But it is funny that he's using it against Vidit, who's probably very familiar with it. B3 on the board. Fianchetto only. Just want to make sure I'm not missing the rest of these games. Magnus decides for D4. I'm not too familiar with the theory, but one thing's for sure, Vidit doesn't want to deal with bishop B5. Like, there are a lot of lines where, black goes like this, white gets bishop B5, double pawns, and at least that gives white an imbalance to play for the whole game. Looks like some B4, C4 stuff happening. Yes. Bring up the other game here. Also a lot of theory in this line. So the two games that have started so far are the ones where we have the white pieces. Aryan and Magnus. Aryan is playing probably a bit of theory here. This line's also quite established, and black, generally does well. Very well explored, this particular variation. So those are the two games that we're looking at right now. Our board 3 and 4 matchups are still to come. And these are the 4 games that are going to determine whether we have tie breaks or whether the Canada Chessbrahs can close out against the Indian Yogis. Bishop B2 always looks a little funny because, of course, you just went to D3. H3 is always there as a follow-up. A3, H3. E5 as well. But I don't know much about the theory here. I'm assuming Aryan does. Probably thinking about which lines he wants to go for. And all the games are underway, so here we go. We have Razvan's matchup, and there's Jennifer. So Razvan and Jennifer both with the black pieces. We have a Petrov by Jennifer Yu. Definitely draw-ish, but I don't think this particular line you're just neutralizing to a draw with no effort. Not these days, especially not in rapid. Meanwhile, Razvan is playing a line which I actually like. I think this is a good line. You put all your pawns like this, and you just kind of restrict white from any of these breaks. And yes, you give up some squares along the way, but I think it's a dangerous line for black. I like it. I like the line. All right, Aryan's gone for h3. Hey, makes sense to me. I mean, hit the bishop. How's the time situation here? Around even in Magnus's game as well, but it's hovering right around equal in both cases. Both positions, rather. This knight can swing back to e4. One thing about black's position is that bishop is not fantastic on a7. Like just biting on the e3 pawn. Oops. Queen takes d6. Not quite a threat. Not quite a threat. So, all the games look, relatively even. No one's doing anything insane so far in the openings. I think every game has started out pretty fairly. Knight d5 played. Well, guess what? Queen takes d6 is actually a threat now. So the knight retreats, and I imagine we might see some setup like this. Queen b3 is another option, but it definitely feels like queen c2, queen b3 are just the wrong side of the fence. The one thing about queen c2 is it does eyeball the pawn on h7. But for the moment, Magnus he's thinking about the c5 square. Knight c5, rook takes c5 as an idea. This never feels good to allow. So perhaps we'll see queen e2. Right now, knight takes b4 looks like a potential threat. So yeah, queen e2 played and rook d1 potentially to follow. Okay, Aryan's gone for e5 and f4. So at least we have some clear imbalances here. Black has to answer the call of g4, f5. Now, I'm not necessarily sure that that's something you want to go for here. Queen h4 happens by black with a lot of threats after g4. f5 also drops the e-pawn. And in the meantime, of course, black has some moves before that happens. So but f4 clearly dictates, Aryan's playing for a result here. That's for sure. He's not playing this to just be equal or anything like that. So curious how Rana handles things. But like I said, Aryan's playing for a result. Yeah, I've been clear so far. I like the opening. Bishop d7 played. I just think it's I've seen this played before. I think it's like super solid for black. White's gone for this maneuver. Knight there, knight there, knight there in order to cover d5. So the way black is playing, you're giving up the d5 square. That's clear. But white doesn't have any pawn breaks. The only one they do have, and what they often go for, is f4. But in the meantime, black can go here. Maybe push the h-pawn now that there's no knight on f3. After knight b5, I'm assuming we'll see this bishop potentially move again. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to go knight c8. Maybe there's an idea to play knight d4 here and sack the pawn. I'm not so familiar, but yeah, probably it's just too much. And bishop e6 is nice and easy. I'm assuming bishop e6, knight d5 might happen. And Jennifer's position. Let's get the lay of the land here. We know it was a Petrov. Bishop f4, and we have opposite sides castling, which is fairly standard. And we see c5, which is normal from black, even though it's like kind of a backwards pawn there. Knight g5 played then next, not allowing bishop takes knight. And for the record, black's not necessarily thrilled to take this because of the open files and the attack. d5, f3, and bishop d7. It looks like that bishop wants to get to the c6 square. Surprisingly, with the knight and bishop here, it's not the easiest to launch an attack with the pawns. Like, it just doesn't really go anywhere. So I think the bishop wants to reroute. And the question is then, what does white do if black wants just rook e8, bishop f8, and just trade rooks? That's an idea. Queen a5 is another very common move here to hit the a pawn, get developed. Of course, you're not Not going to do that while your bishop's loose here. Yeah, definitely looks like these moves are on tap here. Not a bad position for Jennifer, but guess what? She's down a couple minutes here. Getting closer to a minute and a half now. Time advantage is significant. Actually reminds me, let me check the time here. Seems to be about even. About even here as well. Black played, in my opinion, one of the most natural moves, knight c5. And how is the time in Magnus's game? We'll stay here for a sec. Position looks equal-ish, but I think it was always going to be the case. So knight g3 eyeballs, potentially knight h5, right? Just to put some pressure on the g7 pawn. I don't think black's necessarily averse to the move f6 because it helps the bishop. But the one thing it does is that white has the option to go bishop b1, and then queen c2 becomes a really dangerous option. So knight here, f6, just knight back, might be worth it for white because then you have bishop b1 ideas, and I don't know how you're covering that long diagonal. So knight here definitely indicates knight h5. But the other thing is if black can just start getting some trades, I think he'll be quite happy here. I mean, the pawn structure is, it's equal, first of all, material-wise. Pawn structure is symmetrical. Everything looks equal here. But if you look at the quality of the pieces, this bishop on this diagonal is nothing compared to that. Same thing for this bishop compared to that. So the quality of white's pieces, I believe, is definitely better. And that's where Magnus's advantage lies. Bishop b1, and we're looking at ideas like queen c2 and bishop takes f6. Black is happy, more than happy to trade pieces. I think if rook d8, we might even see rook c1. This looks like a position where Magnus might want to keep pieces on the board because, look, it doesn't really matter if your opponent has the d file. What are they going to do with it? Can't access any of those squares. Doesn't matter. Magnus also with a little bit of a time advantage here, minute and a half. Knight e2 played. So bishop takes on d2. If rook takes d2 as the follow-up, seems to me like queen c3 is like the first move I think of. But then I'm noticing knight a4 or knight takes d3. Which are not totally convincing. So maybe start with knight g3 first. Get the knight out of the way, hit the bishop. If the bishop moves, we have ideas like f5. I think that looks like what Aryan's doing with the position. So knight e2 is saying, you kind of have to take me, dude. Right? If you don't take me, then I might take you. So takes. But then after this, if bishop takes, the knight comes in e4. The one thing about bishop takes is if rook takes b2, I think we have some great options like queen d4, for example. Just hit queen c3, there is knight a4. Probably still winning, but maybe unnecessary. Or actually, queen d4, there's rook c2. So I think we actually need to do this. Yeah, I was thinking queen d4 stops that, but it allows rook c2, which I missed. So then queen c3, queen a3 should win a piece there. So knight e2, knight takes d3 could be the starting move. But, that bishop is dead here unless you take the knight. And if you do, white's position looks good. Solid pawns, d4 coming, rook c1, weak pawn here. Depends what lines his opponent chooses, but Aryan now has a serious advantage on the clock. And I could definitely see this position working out. He's got 2.5 minutes up. And just by the way, in Magnus's position, rook d8, rook c1 was played. Magnus with a bit of an advantage here. So our first two boards, I think, are going well. I'll say that. I like the positions, like the time situation. Right here, Razvan probably just going for something equal, something chill. takes, rook b8 is a serious threat. So after takes, he wants to trade pieces. White is definitely a little bit better here. No question about it. There's no serious attack from black just yet. You know, queen d7. If takes, we can always take back. And black's doing well. But I think white might want to go b5. Maybe rook over. Queen b3. But I've always liked this opening. Like I've been saying the whole game. I don't think white has any kind of crazy advantage here. King h7. And again, takes is always fine for black. So I like the position for Razvan. But I don't think he's doing well. I just think he's playing a position where it seems like if the team needs a draw, that he's in a decent spot to try to get it. But the first thing I said was, look, there's no attack coming for black, which is not a good sign. So there's no counterplay. White kind of has some pressure here. It's not enough to be better, but has a little bit of pressure. Black with no attack over here means white has to stand better because they're the one pushing. But I just don't know if it's enough for white to win the game. All right, so Razvan's got this position. Let's check in with Jennifer here. Bishop d7, bishop e5, h6. And again, you're not necessarily planning on taking that in every line. It can be pretty scary, but it's still nice to throw the move h6 in there. And after bishop d3, c4, saying, look, you can't keep your bishop on that diagonal. If bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight h7, I mean, you're just taking that bishop. Bishop h7, king over. Not sure there's anything there either. It's almost like bishop h7 and f4 I want to do as white. You know, like, please take me. But the thing is, Jennifer's not obligated. She doesn't have to take this knight. So c4, I like the move. Positionally, it's very weakening. Obviously, this d4 square, d5 pawn backward, right? It's not good in that sense, but it does. I mean, b5, b4 is an idea after. Rook e8 finally. And if you force the bishop to go back, that's a pretty good feeling. So what do I think about the games thus far? This position could definitely go either way. This game is such an important one for the match. Tari's position, I think he's got a little bit of something against Raunak, and so does Magnus. So I was liking both of their positions. I love our first two boards. I think board 3 is like potentially a little shaky. This one here. B5 played, takes, and then c4. Very interesting. I think he wants to go bishop d5 and like, well, actually knight d5. And how do you defend this pawn? That's a good question. Why is knight d5 no good here? Taking can't possibly be the move. Bishop e3? Maybe b5. And it's like, yeah, go take my pawn, but I think you're kind of miscalculating or misevaluating because, right? This is just stone cold winning for white. So he might have been relying on knight d5 here to take this pawn as like a means to just simplify. But this diagonal and this bishop coming in is actually really scary. And whoa, we got to jump to this game. Arian's position is getting a little feisty here. We saw knight e2, bishop takes, which made sense, and queen h4. b3 to stop rook takes b2, and then black took the opportunity to play g5, which is probably a very good move. At least practically speaking. Obviously super weakening for the king, but it gets rid of the e-pawn. That strong setup. White was about one move away from, you know, king h2, g3, bishop f3, and everything's almost totally fine. And I think Arian is, well, he's got to go for the trade now. Takes and rook e7. Plus, there's ideas like c4. I'm not sure that there are tremendous winning chances after trading the queens here, but I don't believe we should be significantly worse. All right, let's jump over to Magnus's game. It's been a while since we've seen this. The guy is cooking up something over here. Queen h7 after bishop takes c5. So he kind of got everything we've been talking about. Knight e4, and after knight d5, the intermezzo here. Queen h8, king there, rook takes c5, queen b7, e4 by Magnus, knight f4, and let's stick with this game. Less than a minute for both players. Magnus's queen is on h8. Like, it's entrenched in there. You might get nervous for it after bishop d7, but it looks like it always has an out. The thing is, while this position is better for white, I'm not sure that I see it clearly. What's going to happen? Knight e7 is a big time move. Covering that square, and what is Magnus cooking up here? Holy smokes. Takes, and he wants mate, plus the knight is hanging, and his opponent only has 15 seconds. This is incredible. Knight to h5 looks like the move to defend. And now if g4, it looks like g4. There's actually knight g6 here. Looks like knight g6. And I see Aryan on the cam. He's not happy about something. And I think Aryan just lost. Aryan, well, he's going to lose because he missed. I had to jump here. He missed rook takes bishop and king e8 trapping his rook. And Aryan is dead lost here. King e8, rook takes e6, king takes d7. That trick is not going to work either. Aryan goes down. Magnus is doing some insane things, but he's down a piece. What the hell is going on? Oh my goodness. Magnus is trying to make an attack work, but it looks like he's reached the end of the line here, and even Magnus might lose this game. It looks all the more likely. 4 seconds. How tricky can Magnus be? Vidit is up a clear piece, and guess what? Bishop c6 is happening. This looks really, really lost right now with queen d1 check threatened as well. I'll be surprised if Magnus can get out of this. Queen g4, born out of desperation here. And Magnus is playing on, but our last two boards are going to have to do something special because this looks like an Indian Yogis comeback like we've never seen before. Magnus is going to play on. It looks very lost. 6 seconds, but he's got that increment. He's got that increment. The top two boards look so decent at one point. I mean, there's not much Magnus can do here. He's trying to fight. I'm going to switch to this board. But these boards, these last two boards did not look good for us. So we're going to have to pull something out of the hat here. Jennifer's game, honestly, might have been one of our better ones early on. Knight c3 played. It looks like Magnus and Aryan are about to lose. Well, Aryan's already lost his game. It looks like Magnus might have his first loss in the Pro Chess League, and it is his first loss. It is his first loss. Knight c4. Yeah, bishop just goes back. Magnus is upset. He knows the team needed that result. Bishop g7. Rook takes d5, bishop c3. Okay. Rook d3 can be played. And then bishop c2. But then maybe rook takes d5. I tell you can see the emotion there. f4. So he's giving the rook. I mean, you almost have to just take, right? But that's brutal. That's a very devilish move there, f4. With only 10 seconds for Razvan, that is devilish. He knows that position, even though he just lost material, is so lost. It really is. And let's check in with Jennifer's position. What the heck just happened here? Bishop takes g7. Maybe could have been taken, who knows? Rook e8 played. White is struggling to get the pieces in, but maybe queen here is available. Bishop e5. Nice and simple. 4 seconds for Jennifer. Let's stick with this game. Only 4 seconds for Jennifer. F4 probably going to happen. Oh, Queen H2 is even sliding in. This queen is so misplaced. It's like, how do you even survive this position? I don't even know. Bishop here, you can take, and check. Or just take and Queen H2. I mean, this looks like it's going down. Queen H2 is too strong. It's got to be. This is just mate. Has to be mate. I think here, and here is how you get it done. And that's going to be 3 points. And that's already a win, I think. With 3, it might even be like a 4-0 potential in the final round. I tell you, we're good in every single round except round 4, it looks like. And I see, actually, the cameras are a little messed up here. People are dropping out of the call. Get to see some forehead cams. We can turn these off for now, I guess. There we go. This position looks lost, but the match is already over. It looks like a 4-0, entirely likely, but he's just playing for fun right now because this is a complete reverse sweep. This is not only 4-0, big comeback. We were 5.5 to 2.5, if I'm remembering. 5.5, 2.5, and then everything goes wrong. We only got 1 more point out of 8 more games. Pretty clinical here by White. Razvan's still fighting, though. Credit to him. Obviously, they don't know the results when they're in their games. So he has to keep fighting. Bishop G6, though. Yep, that'll do it. That'll do it. That's actually going to be a 4-0. Kind of incredible. Every single player lost round 4. Magnus, Aryan, Razvan, and Jennifer Yu all lost in round 4, which means the final score is actually a resounding, I mean, it's crazy, this comeback. 9.5 to 6.5. Remarkable. 9.5 to 6.5. I mean, that's a feels bad, man, right? That's, I'm gonna need some hugs around the chat for that. That comeback is brutal. Because when you think about it, we had 5.5, they had 2.5. And then for the next 2 rounds, we only got 1 more point from Magnus. It was Magnus. And everyone else lost every other game. Oh, feels so bad. Feels so bad. They went from 2.5 to 9.5 points. And actually, when you think about it as well, as you guys are pointing out, Magnus won that game early in the round. So we actually just lost, ever since that game early in round 3, we lost every single game for the rest of the match. Which, I mean, you're not going to win any matches that way. This is the definition of, we had you in the first half. I'm not going to lie. And keep in mind, even if one of us had won here and we lost 3-1, we still would have lost the match. So this was overkill. This was overkill, right? It's 9.5, 6.5. So even if it was 8.5, 7.5, still would have been a match L for the team. 8.5 points is enough to win. Are we out? No, certainly not. We're not eliminated or anything like that. But I can tell you that the whole point of the format is that teams that win all their games, I think it's teams that win their first 3 games. So weeks 1 to 3, the end of the 3rd week, the top 2 teams advance to the playoffs. So that'll be a team, 2 teams that are probably 3-0. So we're no longer going to be doing this, most likely. We're also pretty likely not going to be the bottom 2 teams. So we're not going to be eliminated. And it means that in weeks 4 and 5, The remaining teams play another round. You play again, and if you're top 3 after week 4, we advance. If we're bottom 3, we get eliminated. So we're far from being eliminated, but it just means we're, in all likelihood, not going to advance after 3 weeks. So when you think about it, it actually means that you guys get more chess from the team. We get more coverage, and we play more matches. So I'm pretty sad right now, but is that silver lining? That's all I got right now, because I'm devastated. That means this is a big L. Huge comeback from the Indian Yogis. So we'll at least be playing week 4, maybe week 5 as well. That obviously depends. But that is a really, really brutal final round there. And the thing is, if one player had done better, it wouldn't have changed the result. We had to be better as a team, not just like, it's not like one move or one blunder or one player's result caused that round 4 collapse. That was everyone, right? Just all together. Just all together. Classic throw for content. Thank you guys. Let's get the copium in the chat. Let's get the copium going. That's all I got right now. There's just L's all around. So I'm grasping at straws here. I'm grasping at straws. Big IQ, thanks for the 8 months with Prime. But I mean, yeah, what can you do? What can you do? We had a good start. You also have to remember that lineups that we have, which feature, let's say, Magnus Carlsen, have a heavy, let's say, top-heavy lineup. Magnus, you know, any lineup with Geary. Technically, we're supposed to perform well in the early rounds. Technically, because we have some like big rating mismatches. And we're supposed to perform worse in later rounds because the head-to-head matchups don't always favor us. But the mismatches sometimes do. Like Magnus is gonna, you know, crush a lot of people. But when it gets down to Magnus against another 2700 player, like, you know, obviously he can lose, as we've seen today. Or he's certainly not guaranteed to win like it feels like he is in previous rounds. So I'm just saying, with some of the rosters and lineups that we're putting forward, it does feel like we're expected to perform well early on. And it means we get out to an early lead, which means it sets us up for potential chokes. We've seen that over 2 weeks so far. Our round 4 has been the worst round every single time. Round 3 has also been sketchy. But we always seem to win round 1 and 2. And we always seem to lose round 3 and 4. And I think that's because of the lineups that we have. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but it just means like, I don't know, it's kind of like in tennis. When you have the serve, you go up 1-0 if you win and hold your serve. Now you're up 1-0, so your opponent's kind of making a comeback to even it 1-1. But technically they're on serve. And you're like expected to win with your serve. So I feel like it's kind of the same way. We're expected to win the first couple rounds. We're maybe not expected to do as well in the later rounds. So even though we get that early lead, I'm starting to feel like that doesn't mean anything towards the match. It's not like we're crushing the match just yet. When we start winning rounds 3 and, you know, doing well in round 4, then I'll start feeling better about it. But at the moment, I do get the feeling that we're kind of supposed to do well early, and we are. But hopefully the players don't let it get to their head, because for me, when I'm watching, I'm excited when we're up 5.5, 2.5, but to a certain degree, we're probably expected to have a good score there. probably expected. But we have lots of lineups to try, so we certainly won't be... I mean, there's lots of players on our roster that we haven't even seen yet. A lot of things go into the roster, or the lineups rather. Who's available to play that week, maximizing the rating, what team we're playing against, all that stuff. So we'll see some more lineups, I'm sure, some more players. Yeah, round 3 was the bad one. I know round 4 was 4-0, but it felt like round 3 was the brutal one. It really did. It's painful, guys. It's painful. We lost 7 straight games in order to lose the match. 7 straight games. Oof. Oh, it just hurts to say. It hurts to say. But we're also on a delay here on the stream. So I'm not going to keep streaming for now. May indeed stream later today. I think that... Actually, I'm not sure, but... Yeah, they run the title Tuesday, I think, during... while PCL happens. Should be done by then. So, gonna end off the stream now, just because I can't keep streaming with the delay. It's so weird. It's so weird. I'm like talking about something. I gotta wait a minute for your comments. So I'm gonna make sure when we stream again, maybe for the late title Tuesday, that the delay is off. But that's the PCL Week 2 matchup. Unfortunately, we lost 9.5 to 6.5 to the Indian Yogis. We're definitely not eliminated, not at all. But it means we're probably gonna have to play more matches. We'll at least be playing 2 more matches, it looks like, maybe 3. So I'll end off for now. Feels bad. Chessbrahs feels in chat. We'll see you guys later. Also, keep in mind, I'm going to start my Building Habits series tomorrow. That's Building Habits Bullet tomorrow. So I'll see you guys for that. We'll probably have the stream on for late title Tuesday. All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Obviously, tough result. Tough pill to swallow. 7 straight losses. 4-0 final round. And the team loses week 2 of the Pro Chess League. But like I said, we're not eliminated. And we'll be back next week for another match. And I'll be back commentating it. All right. So we'll see you guys then.